Let's Stay Together. Sarah's fingers danced across the piano keys, coaxing a melody that seemed to float on the warm summer breeze drifting through the open window. Soft and soulful notes filled the small apartment with a familiar tune, one that always brought a smile to Michael's face. As he leaned against the doorframe, watching his wife lost in the music, Michael felt a swell of emotion in his chest. It had been 20 years since they first met, drawn together by their shared love of soul music and Al Green's timeless vocals. Now, 2 decades later, that same music still held the power to transport them back to those early days of their relationship. Sarah looked up, catching Michael's eye, and her fingers stilled on the keys. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Long enough to fall in love with you all over again," Michael replied, crossing the room to kiss her forehead softly. Sarah laughed, the sound as musical as her playing. "Smooth talker. Some things never change, do they? And some things get better with time," Michael countered, settling onto the piano bench beside her. "Like us." As Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, Michael reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It hadn't always been easy, but through every high and low, they had chosen to stay together, to work through their challenges and to keep their love alive. Their story began on a rainy night in a small jazz club downtown. Fresh out of college and struggling to find his place in the world, Michael had ducked into the club to escape the downpour. The moment he stepped inside, he was captivated by the sultry voice floating from the stage. With her wild curls and soulful eyes, Sarah was singing a cover of an Al Green classic. Michael moved closer to the stage, drawn by an inexplicable force. When their eyes met, it felt like the rest of the world faded away. After her set, Michael gathered the courage to approach her. "Your voice," he said, stumbling over his words, "it's like sunshine after the rain." Sarah had raised an eyebrow, amused by his awkward charm. "That's quite the compliment. You always this poetic." "Only when I'm inspired," Michael replied, finding his footing. "Can I buy you a drink?" That night, they marked the beginning of their whirlwind romance. They talked for hours, discovering shared passions and dreams. Both were aspiring musicians, Sarah with her powerful vocals and Michael with his guitar. They began collaborating, their voices and instruments blending in perfect harmony. For a while, it seemed like nothing could stop them. They played gigs together, wrote songs and fell deeper in love with each passing day. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The first test of their relationship came when Sarah was offered a chance to tour with a well-known band. She couldn't pass up the opportunity, but it meant being apart for months at a time. "Go," Michael had urged her, even as his heart ached at the thought of separation. "This is your dream. We'll make it work." And they did, for a while. Late-night phone calls, surprise visits whenever possible, and the promise of a future together kept them going. But the distance took its toll. Misunderstandings crept in, jealousy reared its ugly head, and both began questioning if their love was strong enough to withstand the strain. During one of Sarah's rare visits home, things came to a head. A heated argument erupted, years of pent-up frustrations and fears spilling out. "Maybe we were fooling ourselves," Sarah had said, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe love isn't enough." Michael, his anger and hurt threatening to overwhelm him, had been ready to walk out the door. But as he reached for the handle, the soft strains of an Al Green song drifted from a neighbor's apartment. The familiar melody stopped him in his tracks, memories of their first meeting flooding back. He turned back to Sarah, seeing the pain and love mirrored in her eyes. At that moment they both realized that what they had was worth fighting for. It wouldn't be easy, but they were committed to staying together, working through their problems, and building a life that accommodated their individual and shared dreams. Sarah gave up the tour, but not her music. Instead, they focused on building their careers locally, supporting each other's endeavors while nurturing their relationship. It wasn't always smooth sailing. They had their fair share of arguments and misunderstandings, but they faced each challenge together, growing more potent as a couple with each obstacle overcome. As the years passed, their love deepened and matured. They celebrated each other's successes, comforted each other through failures, and built a life filled with music, laughter, and unwavering commitment. Now, sitting side by side at the piano, Michael marveled at how far they'd come. Sarah's fingers began to move across the keys again, playing the opening notes of their song, the Al Green classic that had brought them together all those years ago. Michael's rich baritone joined Sarah's lilting soprano, their voices blending perfectly as they sang of love, commitment, and the joy of staying together through good times and bad. As the last notes faded away, they sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined. "You know," Sarah said softly, "I wouldn't change a thing about our journey. Every ups and downs, every struggle and triumph, it's all led us here." Michael nodded, bringing her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. "And there's nowhere else I'd rather be." Just then, an essential turning in the lock caught their attention. Moments later, their teenage daughter Melody burst into the apartment. Her passion for music was evident in how she hummed absent-mindedly as she dropped her backpack by the door. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe what happened at school today," Melody exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. As she launched into her story, Michael and Sarah exchanged a fond glance, silently acknowledging the beautiful life they had built together. Later that evening, as the small family sat around the dinner table, the conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the occasional burst of song. Michael couldn't help but reflect on how their home was always filled with music, not just the melodies they played and sang, but the harmony of their lives together. After dinner, as Melody retreated to her room to practice her guitar, Michael and Sarah returned to the piano. They began to play without a word, improvising a duet that spoke of their enduring love and shared history. As the music swelled around them, Michael thought about the challenges they still faced, the everyday stresses of work and family life, the dreams they were still chasing, and the changes that came with growing older. But he knew that as long as they faced these challenges together, hand in hand and perfect harmony, they could overcome anything. The song ended, and Sarah turned to him with a smile that still made his heart skip a beat. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Michael pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am for you, for us. How I fall in love with you all over again every day." Sarah's eyes sparkled with unshed tears. "Even after all these years?" "Especially after all these years," Michael replied. "Every laugh line, every gray hair, every shared memory, they're all part of our story. And I love every chapter." As they held each other close, the faint strains of an Al Green song drifted in from Melody's room. The familiar melody wrapped around them like an old friend, reminding them where they started and how far they'd come. At that moment, Michael knew with absolute certainty that they would face it together, no matter what life threw their way. Like the timeless music that had brought them together, their love would endure through the ages, a testament to the power of choosing to stay together, come what may. As the evening wore on, Michael and Sarah joined Melody in her room, sharing stories of their early days and the music that had shaped their lives. They sang together, three voices blending in joyful harmony, creating new memories while honoring the past. As Michael looked at his wife and daughter, he realized that this moment, this love, this family, was the most beautiful music of all, a symphony of love, commitment, and togetherness that would play on for generations to come. In the years that followed, Michael and Sarah continued to face life's challenges together. They weathered job losses and health scares, celebrated career milestones and personal achievements, and never wavered in their commitment to each other. They watched with pride as Melody grew into a talented musician in her own right, her music a beautiful blend of their influences and her unique voice. And when she fell in love for the first time, they were there to offer guidance and support, sharing the lessons they had learned over the years about nurturing a lasting relationship. As they entered their golden years, Michael and Sarah's love deepened and evolved. They found new ways to express their affection and support each other through the changes that came with aging. And always there was music, in the songs they sang together, in the rhythm of their shared life, in the beating of their hearts. Their story became a legend in their community, a couple who had stayed together through thick and thin, and whose love had stood the test of time. Young couples would seek them out for advice, hoping to learn the secret to their lasting happiness. Michael and Sarah would smile, thinking back to that rainy night in a small jazz club, to the Al Green song that had brought them together, and to all the moments, big and small, that had shaped their journey. The secret, they would say, is to choose each other daily. We must face life's challenges together, celebrate our joys, and comfort each other through sorrows. And most importantly, to never stop making music together, in whatever form that might take. As the sun set on another day in their long and beautiful life together, Michael and Sarah sat on their porch, hands intertwined, listening to the melody of the world around them. And in the rhythm of their breathing, in the synchronized beating of their hearts, they heard the sweetest music of all, the enduring song of their love, a timeless ballad of two hearts that had chosen against all odds to stay together.